The boys in homeroom were talking about it. They were like the Hardy Boys, but there were 3 of them. They were always talking about some adventure they just had. They had even invited me a few times, but I was always too chicken. One time, they jumped the fence at the quarry. Another time, they went to the old abandoned mall near the sealed-off freeway that no one used anymore. This time, they were talking about a cave. It wasn't far from my house, at least that's what Miles said. It was in the woods behind my backyard, about a half-mile down. But it wasn't the cave they were talking about. Well, it was and it wasn't. See, Miles said he had heard something there, and he couldn't stop thinking about it. He said a voice was calling him to go inside. The others thought maybe they heard something, but they couldn't be sure. Miles wanted to go in, but the others said no, and as much as they wanted to, they just hadn't come prepared. Mickey said that it looks like you'd easily get lost because it was so dark. But tonight they'd bring flashlights and one of the big, long dock line ropes Chris's dad had down at the boatyard. It was sturdy, and if they tied it to something outside the cave, it'd keep them from getting lost in there. They invited me. When I said yes, they all froze. "You're going in first, then," Mickey said. That dumb, freckled smile and greaser hair always made me want to punch him. We all met up that night by my house around midnight. I followed them as they walked single file straight through the woods. It was easy enough to find the cave, half-mile down, just like Miles said. It looked like a big open mouth, black inside and totally hollow. "There's someone in there," Miles told me. I stared at it, with the others expecting me to go in first. He said he wasn't trying to scare me, but he knew it was true. There was something in there. He had heard it himself. I nearly peed my pants just looking at it. I told them I couldn't do it. They laughed. Then Mickey tied the rope to a tree outside and told me to wait for them. He said if they hadn't come back in an hour, I should tell someone. So I sat there and guarded the rope. At first it went taut because they used it to help them go down the initial slope just past the mouth of the cave. Just after a minute or so, the rope went slack, and they called to me saying that they were going a bit deeper. I said okay, and I sat there in the woods. That was the scariest night of my life. Normally, the woods would be the scariest part. I didn't even like looking at them from my bedroom window at night. Something about them always felt sinister, even during the day, to be honest. They never felt like nature usually does. But this time, it wasn't the towering trees or the whispering of the wind slithering through the leaves that terrified me. This time, it was the cave. From where I sat, it was just a wide opening with darkness so thick it could even be a curtain. Someone could have been standing there staring at me, and I would have never known it. The sun woke me up. It was dawn. It had been 5 hours since they went into the cave. I moved to the entryway and screamed, but there was no answer. I told my mom everything, and she called the police. The policemen could hardly fit in the tunnels past the slope. They tried everything they could, but nothing worked. 2 weeks later, the search was called off. I had nightmares pretty much every night for a year after that. On days I couldn't sleep, I would sit up, looking at the woods behind my house, waiting for them to come walking out. They never did, of course. I never heard a single thing about them. Some people even tried going into the caves to look for anything they could find, but they all said it was just too tight to get anywhere after the slope near the opening. My senior year, people were finally starting to forget. It was almost like it was an urban legend, like it hadn't really happened. I was okay with that. I wanted to forget. One night, I woke up to a knocking at my front door. It was still the middle of the night. I was so groggy, I wasn't sure I was even really awake or not. I followed the sound of the knocking all the way downstairs and opened the door. But there was no one there. Then I heard the knocking again and realized it had been coming from behind me, from the basement door. Now I was sure I was awake. And I was scared. Every few seconds, it would come again. Knock, knock, knock. I was scared to open it, but I was frozen there, too afraid to run. So I opened the door. Miles was walking down the stairs already. The light in the basement was off, so he was just barely visible. He turned back and looked at me. "You have to come to the cave," he said. "We're still down there." He turned to go back down. Just before he did, his eyes glistened yellow in the half-light. He walked into the dark and vanished. I tried to convince myself that it had been a dream, but something inside wouldn't let me believe it. After that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if it was true? What if they were still down there? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the mouth of the cave, just like that night. I felt like all it wanted was for me to go inside. I kept thinking about the tunnels. What if there was one right beneath me as I saw in class? What if all three boys were only a few feet away from me, right beneath the surface? It would have been the easiest thing, just staying put, keeping to the surface. The risk was all below. Just knowing it was there, knowing I would never have an answer to what happened to those guys unless I went in. I found myself going in there one day, when it was still light out, with nothing but a flashlight in hand. I figured I'd just cross the threshold, look around for a second, and come back up. Maybe the pulling, the incessant thinking about it would finally stop if I just went inside, just for a second. When I got there, it wasn't so scary, so I walked inside. The cave was wide, wider than I would have thought. It sloped down so that just after you had gone in, you were already too deep to see the opening behind you unless you looked up, which I did. The cave stretched on beneath me. It was steep, but not so much that it caused much concern. I figured if I was really desperate, I could climb back up pretty easily. So I slid down, following the beam of my light, down and down the wide open cave. Finally, I came to the edge of the slope. There was a drop, only about 7 feet down. I aimed my light. It seemed like a flat platform and a way to keep going straight. I could only see a foot or two into the corridor. The walls were full of rocks that stuck out. I could climb up if I wanted, so I sat on the ledge and pushed myself off, landing on the platform. "Hello?" I called at the edge of the corridor. My voice carried, bouncing off the walls and fading into the dark. The feeling that had brought me here didn't dissipate as I moved deeper into the cave. It was just the opposite. The feeling got more and more intense, like I was always right on the edge of finding out the mysteries of the cave. So I went into the corridor. It wasn't super wide, but not too narrow either. I had to turn to walk sideways and fit comfortably, but that was okay. Behind me, the light from outside was starting to fade. In front, there was only the yellow beam of my flashlight bounding against the rock, which got sharper and sharper as I walked on. By the time I reached the end of the corridor, they were sharp as knives. There was another slight slope down. Beyond that, I wasn't sure. My light couldn't reach. I slid down, but the slope was so smooth I almost slipped and fell. At the bottom, I turned my light back and saw the slope was just as big as the first one. Only it was steeper, and there was nothing to hold on to. I tried climbing back up, but even as I did, I knew there was no turning back. And as much as I wanted to leave, I still felt like it wasn't done. Just a little further, I thought. I was almost there. The tunnel ahead wasn't wide like the first. In fact, it was exactly as wide as I was. I pushed in, both my arms grazing the sides. Each step was tighter than the last, and worse yet, it was always going down. I realized that ever since I had entered the cave, I had been steadily moving deeper underground, always going down. I must have gone at least a quarter of a mile below the surface by now. There was no turning back. I just had to hope I would find something that the other boys didn't. The beam of my flashlight grew dim, but there wasn't much to see anyway because it got so thin ahead. The ceiling of the cave wall dipped down and my only option became simply to go with it, until it got so thin that I was on my stomach. There wasn't enough room to pull myself forward by my arms, so I had to belly crawl 1 inch at a time. My right arm was fully extended out in front of me, the flashlight shaking as I moved. And still the ground sloped down, always deeper. Every moment that passed, I was farther from the surface. I thought the cave would have some logic to its passages, but I was wrong. There was no rhyme or reason for why the tunnels would turn right, or the ground would suddenly give way. And yet, no matter how narrow or awkward, there was always enough room for me to pass through, like it had been made for human bodies to inhabit it, made by something beyond comprehension. And then, just as my light was beginning to truly die out, the narrow passageway I had to push and struggle through, ripping my clothes and tearing my skin, finally opened up. I was elated. My lungs could fill again without the pain of jagged rocks scraping my ribs. But the feeling didn't last. There was nothing ahead. No passage. But there was something below. Water. Black. Nearly invisible. I stepped in it, thinking it was a puddle. My foot sank down to my shins before I caught myself on the edge. First, I tried to go back the way I came, but the protruding rocks cut into my stomach. They all faced toward me so that when I was moving toward them, they only scraped my skin, but now, if I moved the other way, they would rip into me. There was no going back. I could stand here in the little pocket and die, or I could drop into that black hole in the ground and risk not only being stuck, but drowning at the same time. The water bubbled, and I wondered if there was something beneath the surface. Something that had called me here. Called Miles here all that time ago. But then another thought struck me. This one, so horrible, I wished I could have taken it back as soon as I had it. The mouth of the cave. The long, twisting tunnels. The warmth of it against my skin. It all felt so alive. what if it was? What if Miles hadn't been called by something in the cave, but by the cave itself? What if the water moves because it was still digesting their bones? My light finally went out, and I was left with nothing but a darkness so absolute, it too felt alive. Like there was someone standing so close to me. I couldn't see anything at all. Yellow eyes stared up from the black pool beneath me. They quickly sank into the depths. I stood there, frozen and trembling, my mind reeling. Had I really seen them? I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe an hour, maybe 5. My joints were locking up, and the silence around me began to sound like voices. I would move, and my feet would scrape the ground, and I would realize just how quiet it had really been. The dread of my situation began to set in, and I made my decision. I would dive into the black pool. There was no other way. I closed my eyes, which had already filled with tears, and I took a deep breath. I jumped inside. As soon as I did, I knew there was no coming back up the same way. The tunnel was about 5 feet deep. Below, the space opened up into a vast black ocean. I hoped to reach the bottom so I could trudge along the floor to find the wall, but I only kept sinking. Beneath me, there was only emptiness. There was no floor. I could see nothing, of course, but to me it felt infinite, like I was slowly falling down an endless void. The air in my lungs pushed against my ribs, desperate to be let out. Then something swam past me. I couldn't tell what it was. A giant, ancient creature, a skeletal boy who now lived in the labyrinth. Or maybe it wasn't something separate and apart from the cave. Maybe it was a part of it, like a tendril or a pulsing vein. My lungs burned. I opened my mouth. The water rushed in. It flooded every part of me. I woke up choking. All at once, it felt so ridiculous. Of course it had been a dream. It had to be. Once I caught my breath again, I lay down, trying to calm myself. I watched the ceiling, and as I drifted off again, I could have sworn the pattern on the drywall began to swirl. It's been some time since the dream, though how long I can't really be sure. I've moved on from all of that. Even the town is only a memory to me now. I work in the city. I have lunch in the courtyard of one of those new big glass buildings. Every night when I go to sleep, I stare at my ceiling, and just before I fall asleep, sometimes it feels like the world isn't right. It's hard to explain what I mean, but sometimes as I'm going about my day, eating my lunch, sitting on the bus, watching the people on the other side of the window go about theirs, something feels off. The people around me are always pleasant and fine, but there's something not right about them. And sometimes when I'm alone, I wonder if I'm still there. Still in that cave. Just sinking into nothingness. I wonder if all this time I've been there. I've been sinking. What if I never truly woke up? What if right now I'm in the belly of some great beast that placates my mind while slowly but surely it devours me?
Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content. I met a really nice guy called Jeff in the resort I went on holidays with my friends to. I loved to just lie down and relax and feel the peaceful atmosphere all around me. I loved how the island looked when I looked it up online, but somehow it even exceeded my expectation. We were enjoying our time during the day because he was working nights, then had to get to sleep for a few hours. We were really enjoying the sun, so it was kinda cool him having the day off. He looked so cool and had blonde hair and wore sunglasses. My friends Sarah and Judy went off with other guys they met, so it was just as well I met Jeff, or I'd be on my own in this resort. I actually wouldn't mind, only for there being a serial killer breaking into people's apartments and murdering them in their sleep. One girl survived and told the police that he was wearing all black and some sort of ski mask or scarf or something, but she noticed something very strange about his eyes. The police wondered, did he wear contact lenses, or for some strange reason was that really the colour of his eyes? They couldn't even draw up a sketch of the serial killer, as all they had to go on was he had strange red eyes. Me and Jeff didn't let a serial killer loose on the island ruin our fun, so we continued to have as much fun as we could, including surfing. It was so beautiful, feeling the breeze while going along the water on the surfboard. When we got back, I was watching the evening news. It was about the killer. I went to fetch a towel from the shower and accidentally walked in on Jeff. He froze when he saw me and looked right at me with eyes that were the colour red. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content. Sam was very disappointed one night when he was out for a walk and happened to come across a restaurant and was stunned to see his girlfriend Judy in there talking to another man. He thought of movies with scenes like this and wondered, was it something innocent, meeting like a platonic relationship and meeting up about work? But his hopes were dashed when she moved towards the man and kissed him on his lips. They weren't in each other's houses yet, not even up towards the door. Sam knew what he would do. He had done it before and got away with it, so there was nothing from stopping him from doing it now. The next day he met her, he made a date for her that night in a local bar. He was talking to her like there was nothing happened, like she was some honest person who would never cheat. But of course he knew himself the opposite was the truth. They were speaking in the bar, and to any outsider, they would have thought they were both enjoying each other's company. Sam was in an upbeat mood, But little did Judy know, it wasn't because of her being in her company, it was because of what he had planned to do with her. They both walked home, and it was getting dusk. Sam thought Judy had money because her house was huge, but money wasn't important to him, and anyway, he wasn't even in the house. They weren't even next to each other's door, just back a few yards, as if they were hiding some secret affair. But important to him was truth, honesty, and loyalty more than any money. That was the most important thing Sam could have in any relationship. He kissed her goodnight and walked on. 10 minutes later, he walked past her house and took out his very clever contraption he hid in a bush just down from her house. It was a gasoline can he would throw in her window and torch the house, and when it was ablaze, he would make sure it would go up fast, because beforehand he would have doused the walls as much as he could with gasoline. He wasn't familiar with this neighbourhood and wouldn't even set foot in it only for Judy. He would have loved to have stood there watching the fire, but he knew he had to wait till the fire engine got there and join a crowd of onlookers and act like a shocked member of the public. 10 minutes later, the crowd gathered and the fire engine, but he froze in shock when he saw Judy without a scratch speaking to a man. He then heard a person next to him say to another person, "That must have been a gang hit. That is the house of the biggest gang boss in town. There will be a war break out over this." Sam had just wondered, could it be that Judy was just pretending it was her house to impress him? He found out very soon she lived down the road in a very small house, and realised that sooner or later he will have the town, if not state's biggest gang, after him for the arson attack. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content. It was summer in New Orleans when a pastor found out about a mysterious voodoo cult. He was sent an anonymous letter saying that the doom and evil would fall among their town if something wasn't done, and it had to be done from a man of faith. He was told there would be dolls hanging up around somewhere in the town. It needed to be ended by a man of faith. It needed to be a case that a man of faith cut the dolls down. He was shocked reading the letter, but a part of him was just dismissing it, thinking it must be some teenagers with nothing else better to do with their time than write a letter to the local pastor. But all of his skepticism changed in the next few days, when he was going for a walk in the woods, and he had seen lots of dolls hanging off trees. He didn't like the look of it, and put it down to some voodoo or black magic ritual. He came back a while later with his scissors and cut them all down. He counted them individually, and there were 13 dolls exactly. He went home and was in shock while listening to the radio when the newsreader said, "There has been 13 people in a local New Orleans town, Glenside, found dead under mysterious circumstances. It is not known yet what is the cause of the deaths, but the local police are looking for any witnesses or dashcam footage of any of the scenes. There were in various parts of the town. We will keep you updated on this story as more information comes into us." A few minutes later, he walked into his son's room and his son was playing a computer game. It looked to be one of those violent games. The screen said, "Now cut the doll from the string it's hanging on in the ceiling and you will win the game." The son had just cut it before his dad walked in the room, and before his dad could get mad at him for playing another violent game, his dad dropped dead. The son screamed and ran over to his dad, not knowing that the so-called online game he was playing led to the death of his father. When the pastor cut the 13 dolls down, it had to be his own flesh and blood cut another doll down to the pastor be the 14th dead. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. There were 4 random strangers chosen to share in a prize of $100,000 if any one of them solved the puzzle. It started with a simple phone call. Sarah was in her office when she got the call. "Hello, this is a genuine request. You're under no obligation to say yes, but you and 3 other people are invited to take part in a puzzle. If you or any of the rest of the participants solve the puzzle, ye will all share in the prize of $100,000. That's giving ye all exactly $25,000 each. That is a nice payback for just a few minutes' work. If you would like to participate, then all you have to do is arrive at Madison Hotel on Grove Street at 6 p.m. this evening. There is an elevator on the ground floor. Just wait outside that elevator for the door to open. Then please enter with the rest of the participants. You will all know that ye are there for the puzzle, don't worry." The same phone call arrived for Jack, who was in the gym working out. Tony got his call while out walking, and Mary got her call while watching TV. They all agreed to take part in the puzzle. That evening at 6 p.m, they were all waiting outside the elevator, waiting for it to open, excited with the chance of pocketing $25,000 each if any of them solved the puzzle. Suddenly the elevator doors opened, and they all stepped inside. The elevator started going up, and a voice came through the speaker. "Hello, player. Thank you very much for taking part in this puzzle that enables you to have a chance of winning $25,000 each. The question to the puzzle is simple. The floors of this hotel have various occupants at different times. Sometimes, but other times not as much. But what button in this elevator is pressed the most? If you can't answer by the time we reach the top floor, you will be shown the answer on the display in the elevator, but unfortunately you will lose out in the money. This is the most important rule. If you give a wrong answer, you will all lose the game. Good luck." The elevator started going up to the top floor. Everyone started talking about it, trying to solve the puzzle. It sounded so complicated, especially when there were different numbers of people staying in different floors at different times. Everyone knew there was 15 floors in the hotel, so Sarah shouted first floor before it hit 15. They all hoped the answer was right. Then suddenly the voice came back and said, "I am very sorry. You were very close, but the answer is ground floor, because everyone has to go to the ground floor. As promised, we will show you the answer which is everyone has to go to the ground floor. Suddenly the elevator made a bang and started falling faster and faster, and everyone in it started screaming until it crashed to the floor and they were all killed. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Michael was waiting in the waiting room at his local optician's when a girl approached him and said to him, "Hello, Michael, here is a sheet you need to fill out and your eye test will be $30. And if you would like a full 3D scan of your eye to see will there be any problems for you within the next 4 years with your eyesight, then it will be another $25. So you can tick the box if you'd like to have the scan as well as the eye test, and someone will be down to see you for your eye test very soon. Thank you." Michael thanked the girl and filled out the sheet. He decided to get the scan done, considering it a very good idea to know if he will have any problems with his eyes down the road. And 4 years is a very good time range to know beforehand. When Michael entered the room, he was told to rest his chin on a chin rest and look through 2 holes while a girl introduced herself as Sarah. She asked him various questions, which colour was better for him, red or green, and the test went on a few minutes. It ended with Michael having to read out different letters from different lines. Sarah asked, "Could you read the top 3 lines please, Michael?" Michael said, "E, F, P, T, O, Z. Sarah said, "Very good. Now could you please read the 4th line?" He read them, L, P, E, D. Very good. Now if you could read the last few lines please, but it will be getting a bit harder. Michael was pleased to be able to read them. P, E, C, F, D, E, D, F, L, O, P, Z, D, D, E, F, P, O, T, E, C, L, E, F, O, D, P, C, T. Then it came to the scan. Michael was asked to put his eyes on the chin rest again while his eyes were being scanned. Sarah was looking at her screen afterwards, explaining to Michael that everything with his eyes was in great health and he just had to get a bit stronger prescription for his glasses. Michael chose a red pair of glasses and was very happy everything seemed okay. That night when he got home, it started first. He kept getting a vision of some man in a black suit shooting him. He found out by the opticians they had no person by the name of Sarah working in the opticians. He put it down to the eye test why he was getting these crazy visions. The visions went on for months and months of the man shooting him. One night when he was walking, he got such a fright as the man who was in his visions who shot him was walking towards him. Michael panicked when he saw the man put his hand in his pocket, guessing it was a gun to shoot him. So Michael couldn't think of anything else but to push the man into a car that was just passing. The man lied on the street, and before he died, he said to Michael, "I just wanted to give you back your wallet you dropped." A week later, Michael was arrested for murder and realised that it wasn't only the optician could see what happened to his eyes the next 4 years, but he could see what happened to him. But he couldn't figure out, why did the man only want to give him back his wallet when he had visions that he was going to kill him? He'd only wanted to give him back his wallet. That's what Michael could not figure out. Suddenly, when he was walking out of court, being convicted of murder, a man exactly like the man he killed walked up to him and pulled out a gun and said, "You bastard, you killed my twin brother," and he shot Michael between his eyes. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content. Sarah was just after sneaking into a kitchen of a stranger's house while a man was sitting down drinking his coffee. She had it all planned for a few days. What time he would be at home, was there any nosy neighbours on the lookout for something strange, etc. She went up behind him with a knife and slit his neck. Instantly, he fell to the floor. She was looking forward to later, as she was going to see a play. A few hours later, she was admiring her dress she had chosen to wear to the play. On her way to the theatre, she was smiling, looking forward to her next victim. She didn't need a reason to kill. It could be a person she knew all her life, or a complete stranger. Either way, it wouldn't play on her conscience. She would just enjoy the kill and the feeling it gave her. It was like it made her whole again. When she got to the theatre, she took her seat and was looking forward to the play. She heard about it from a friend who saw it a few years ago in a different state. It was a play about a man and a woman running away to get married. Very light and very romantic, just what she needed. When the curtain opened, she saw a table and a man sitting at it. She got comfortable in her seat, looking forward to it. Then a woman came onto the stage, sneaking behind the man. First, Sarah didn't take any notice of what was happening, but when the girl took out a knife, she was shocked at what she was seeing. It was like a play of exactly what she did a few hours before. Suddenly, the man next to her put handcuffs around her hand and said to her, "Looks familiar. You were under arrest for the murder of someone you neglected to find out had CCTV all over their home. I'm sorry, but it looks like you're going to miss the play." The first thing the woman said was, "It was not me. It must have been my twin sister." Then the cop said, "Well, why do you think we went to all the trouble of doing this scene in the play? I'll tell you why. To get your reaction for proof that it was you." Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you want to stay up to date on new content, then please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to be notified on new content.